Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry for the confusion about the dates and the time for today's session. We had some technical difficulties, and because of that, it showed up that the event is tomorrow, but it's actually happening right now as planned on 5 p.m. Friday Pacific time. Today's topic is really special. We are talking about artificial intelligence and SDGs. For those who do not know what SDGs are or United Nations SDGs, here's a quick recap. The United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, or simply SDGs, also known as Global Goals, were adopted by UN in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, ensure that by 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. And as with any technology, artificial intelligence has and will play an important role to achieve SDGs. And that would be our first topic today, which is AI as an enabler or an inhibitor for UN SDGs. Secondly, we'll discuss about AI governance to facilitate SDG goals. And the third would be a little bit related topic, which goes in depth about regulating algorithm, because that's really the core of artificial intelligence, and that then directly affects SDGs in general. We as a company at Robometrics Machine and Skive are obviously very interested in SDGs because we have aligned the company to achieve two goals. SDG 3, which is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. SDG level, which defines and makes cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Healthcare and smart cities are two areas that we are very passionate about and is a use case, and that's one of the big reasons where we are very closely looking at SDGs and want to help collaborate and partner with anyone who is interested. And yes, we are absolutely hiring, so please reach out if you like to work with us in any capacity, as an employee, as a partner, or as an advisor, and of course, investor. We love investors. Okay, let's start with AI as an enabler or an inhibitor to UN SDGs. We all know about the food delivery apps, and we also know about autonomous driving, so Tesla. Some of the algorithms that have been used in food delivery apps really try to optimize on the time, or they really try to optimize on how many of these deliveries could happen really fast. And what that ends up happening is right now in a lot of countries, US is one of them, China is another one of them, where these drivers are at the hook. They are incentivized to go faster, break the law, break the traffic lights to get the delivery faster and to the place. Even here in San Francisco, I've seen Amazon trucks and some of the other FedEx trucks parking at places where they should not park. They're blocking the roads. And it's not their fault. That's what the algorithm says. They're incentivized to do these things so that they can deliver the package faster to us. And that's where artificial intelligence comes into picture, because most of these systems or apps are being driven by an artificial intelligence. So in here, AI could be an inhibitor to UN SDGs. They can actually affect our human lives. AI could also be an enabler of UN SDGs. AI could really help in figuring out where are the people who need the money most. Simple examples from where should and how should we get our donations. That could be done by artificial intelligence system. There are other SDGs that relates to what is the best place to build these houses that are subsidized for the population, or which is the best way to build a certain technology, for example, that helps the elderly. And that's where AI could be a facilitator and an enabler for UN SDGs. Another example is banking. A lot of the credit that is given to people and individual are based on automated credit reports, and that actually what ends up happening is that it's being based on our system that only is, if it's only looking at the spending habits of an individual and how worthy somebody is for credit, it could actually inhibit that individual on getting that credit. But if it's well designed, it could actually enable and make things better. It could make the whole credit system much more inclusive. And that brings us to the second topic, which is AI governance to facilitate SDG goals. I mentioned to you about the Tesla, and a great example is when the Tesla was actually crashed in the middle of the road, and it was not able to detect there's a white container lying on the middle of the road. And obviously, you will not find a white container lying in the middle of the highway that often. So obviously, it was not trained on the right amount of data, and we cannot and should not blame Tesla for that, because it's one of those peripheral cases. But at the same time, some of the other algorithms, the food delivery algorithm, for example, was built in such a way to increase profits. Doesn't really matter what happens to the individuals or the people. And I think that's where AI governance come into picture. That on one side we have the AI technology being used by corporations, small or big, startups or big companies, both are there, and their incentive is to maximize profits. On the flip side of things, you have individuals who are consumers of these companies, of their product. Now, if there is nothing in between to really govern how these AI algorithms needs to work, we have a problem, because the company's end goal is to maximize profit. That's what a corporation is, to increase profits for the shareholders. Most recently, we have seen the advent of ESGs, where the impact investment, or where instead of just a shareholder, you're also talking about employees, or also talking about your customers. But that's usually not the case in majority of the corporation out there, everywhere, North America, China, India, whichever country you can talk of. That's where AI governance becomes really important, where we have the government who is actually regulating how and where this artificial intelligence system could be used. That brings us to our last topic, which is regulating algorithms. If you think about the basis of artificial intelligence, it's an algorithm. That is the core of what artificial intelligence is. That's where you codify what our AI system actually could do. Sometimes it's a trained deep learning system, where what that means is that you're training the system, building that model. But that is also some sort of based on some sort of rules, what sort of action you want out of that algorithm. Sometimes it's purely rule-based system. But after all, it's an algorithm that figures out how much credit you should get, that figures out what should a car do if it sees an elderly and a small kid both at the same time, who should it crash to, or it's your cell phone trying to figure out what to do with your personal data. All these decisions is made by an algorithm. So in my opinion, governance is not just for artificial intelligence. It's in general for algorithm, because it's these programmatic algorithms that have been affecting our lives and will continue to do so much, much, much more. And the whole idea about where should the human being be when making some of those decisions. We have talked about some of these things in the past, about what sort of classification of AI and what sort of classification of algorithms are actually needed. Do not just focus on profits for a corporation, but also to focus on humans, focus on the Sustainable Development Goals from UN. And that's what we really want to do. We should be thinking about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient. We should be talking about the people themselves and not just talking about building a system that could generate revenue for the company. That's where it's important to have responsible AI and SDGs both working together. And that's what we at Skive and Robometrics Machine are also doing, where we are focusing on SDG 3 and SDG 11. If you'd like to help us, we'd love to hear from you. My email is aditya@skive.it. It's aditya@skive.it. Love to hear from you. Thanks. Till next time. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.